Got to give it to Clark Lea. His staff overhaul and complete reorg of the program just may lead them to a bowl game. Well, let's go.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Today, we're going to discuss that overhaul of the program, including new staff roles and how they factor in. We're going to look at the transfer corners and see what they allow Clark Lea to do on defense. And then also on the baseball side, Carter Holton is back from injury. He's ready to take command of the mound. So let's go. Thank you for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So Vandy's 2-10 season. Okay. Now you look at that on the surface and you're like, man, that's terrible. But it sparked a complete overhaul of the football operation. And that's probably the best thing Clark Lea has done. And it just may lead them to a bowl game. And here's why. All right. And it's leading to a lot of optimism. All right. And because of that, I think there's a new excitement within the program. I think some of the things that he's done staffing wise has led to elevated results, led to positive things in recruiting, scouting, and coaching and roster management overall. So things are just different, right? The vibe is different. And when you look at the way this staff is broken up, I think there are perfect people in perfect roles. Now, when I say perfect, I don't mean like perfect, but I mean like perfect for that role and perfect for the situation. All right. For example, you're able as a struggling head coach, and struggling is probably putting it mildly to this point. If you want to seek to understand, I think you've got to put yourself in a position to where you can start to gain that knowledge. And what Clark Lea has done is hire Jerry Kill. Jerry Kill, health problems, great program leader, has been successful every time he steps into that leadership role at a different program. He's been successful each time he's been knocked out by health issues. And it's something that I know bothers him. But for him to get into these advisory roles like he did at TCU, helping Gary Patterson, and then now at Vanderbilt helping Clark Lea, we will only see what those results yield. But I think they're going to be positive ones because he's going to have a lot of wisdom to impart as far as program building, program management, where to be a head coach, where to be a coordinator, where to be lead recruiter, scout, like all the different hats you have to wear as a head coach. I think having a guy like Jerry Kill as a special consultant and is very, very beneficial. So he is the senior offensive analyst is his title, but he is somebody that's going to help build the bridge between Tim Beck and Clark Lea. He's going to have a lot of things that Clark Lea can bounce off of him. Almost kind of like a sounding board, if you will. So Jerry Kill being in that role is absolutely incredible. Obviously, I have gone on about Tim Beck and what he means and what he brings to the table as far as scheme goes. I think what he does is unique enough and versatile enough that he can fit different styles of quarterback, because Nate Johnson and Diego Pavia are the same, but in a lot of ways they're different as well. And I think when you look at the two freshman quarterbacks that they signed, they're also the same way. Whit Muschamp and Jeremy St. Hilaire are both similar, it's the same but different in the same ways that Pavia and Nate Johnson are. So you've got Tim Beck as a coordinator who's also going to coach quarterbacks. You get a new running backs coach in, Ghali Mohammed Langford, another voice in there to kind of bolster that new scheme. So Jeff LePack coming in as the tight ends coach and special teams coordinator. Like, elevating him from an analyst role. You bring in a lot of outside guys, and then you show these analyst guys, these young analyst role guys, that hey, if you bust it, you can get into one of these full-time coaching roles. Like, there is precedent set now that if you do a good job as an analyst, there's a really good chance that you would get a full-time on the field coaching slot or a counted coach. If you do a really good job. And Jeff Lepak did just that as an analyst. You get another key analyst coming in to help with special teams. And I talked about that on an episode with Shane Gallant, coming in as a special teams analyst, coming in from what was the number 1 ranked special teams unit in the country from Mississippi State. So he's coming in to kind of fill that need. And if there's an analyst position, that's probably the most important analyst position, because they do a lot of the scheme work, the breakdown work, so that the guy coordinating the special teams on the field can have all the information right there at his fingertips. So again, that has been incredible. Overhauling the off the field staff, where you have Harding Harper as the director of scouting. I think having him is key, because he played at Vanderbilt, and I talked about this as well. He played at Vanderbilt, and he has been other places in this director of scouting role that will allow him to keep an eye on the transfer portal, keep an eye on recruits, and it allows him to have this advantage of getting an early jump on some of these targets, like Shakai. The Shakai Mills kid from Baylor, getting in early on a target like that will help you land some of those targets instead of being slow to offer and being slow to evaluate and slow to recruit. I think this helps speed this whole process up, because in the recruiting world now, it's evolved to where if you're not on a kid early, they're probably not coming to your program. And that allows a set of eyes that is dedicated to just that. And so that, again, I think him understanding needs of, okay, I need to have eyes here, 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 and here, and here. I can't put my eyes on here. And that's an expectation. When I say I'm talking as Clark Lea. I set the expectation of, hey, this stuff needs to be done, but I can't do it all. And the people that I've hired, either I don't have enough staff, and there's been a lot of like roadblocks and things like that, speed bumps that have allowed for some of this stuff to not happen. But I think Jerry Kill, and I think he's also reached out to other places and looked at other programs and looked at the constructs of other programs and seen that, okay, I need this, this, and this, right? I need somebody good in this role. It's important. I need, I'm going to take over play calling. I'm saying I as Clark Lea now. Pretend I'm Clark Lea for now. I need help in play calling, so I'm going to hire New Mexico State's defensive coordinator to come over and coach my safeties so that I can call plays and he can kind of help me coordinate things on day-to-day and practice plans and drill work and some of the stuff that you would do as an assistant coordinator instead of a head coach coordinator. So that is extremely beneficial. And you have his head coach that he worked for the last 2 seasons there to vouch for him. So it's an easy opportunity for him, and I think it's an opportunity for him to grow under Clark Lea to be able to eventually take over full-time defensive coordinator duties and allow Clark Lea to become that head coach in that regard. So I think Jerry Kill is also in his ear about being more involved in every aspect of the program. It's not meddling if you're the head coach. It's being involved and making sure things are running efficiently while still trusting your guys to do their job. That's been an important mindset shift. The transfer portal. They've hit the transfer portal a little bit harder. Now, they've had a unique approach to it, but as Vanderbilt, you have to have a unique approach to it because, like, you can't go and get the top guys. Like, Caleb Downs was never going to come to Vanderbilt. Right? That's never going to that was never going to happen. And if anybody ever thought that, then they're pretty crazy. But for them to they have to go needs based on this stuff. Like when you look at stars and 5 stars and 4 stars and 3 stars, like when you get below the obvious 5-star Sunday players, like when you look at a player, you can know, especially if you're a coach or director scout, like you watch this player and you just know that they're special. Otherwise, you're looking for fits, right? How does he fit what we do? And that's going to determine his success as a player in your program. Now, with the 3 wide receivers that just left, they weren't necessarily fits, but like the thing they didn't fit into is now gone. So who knows if they would have fit into Tim Beck's system. They didn't want to stick around and find out. But, I think, they've gone to places where they feel like they're going to be better fits, culturally better fits, scheme-wise, and they just kind of take all that into account. What Vanderbilt has to do is they have to get guys in order to improve the culture, and this is part of the overhaul of the mindset now. So the overhaul of the staff, we just mentioned that, but with that comes an overhaul in the mindset of what we have to do to construct this roster, and you have to find unique guys that have chips on their shoulder. Like Diego Pavia has a massive chip on his shoulder, right? Loic Foungy, coming from Texas Tech. Oh, you're injured. Oh, you're not successful. Oh, you're clashing with the coaches. Oh, you're just not getting these opportunities. He has a chip on his shoulder. He has something to prove, right? Jeremiah Dillon, he was buried on the depth chart at Ole Miss. He has something to prove. Ole Miss was a really, really loaded roster at that position. So now Vanderbilt has given him an opportunity to come in, compete, be the lead guy, and say, hey, you want to be a lead guy? Here's your shot. Let's go get it. And that's part of the mindset shift. Like they're getting absolute dogs in these positions. Stephen Lasoya coming in as an interior offensive lineman. He's kind of a jack of all trades. He's probably going to work himself into a starting role at one of the guard spots because that's his mentality. Like he wants to prove himself. Right? That's the shift in mentality that has happened with this staff, and the reason why there's optimism, and it's the reason why there is it's the reason why that their goal of making a bowl game is well within reach and very achievable. And like I said, starts with the Virginia Tech game early on. The tone will be set in that game, and I think it's a winnable game because of this mindset shift. And we'll dive more into the different avenues, and we'll burrow in as spring practice goes in this summer as we get on the eve of fall camp. And then in the season, it'll be report card time, and we'll see how all of these changes play out on the field with a really, really tough schedule. So when we come back, we're going to talking transfer portal. Obviously, we're going to take a look at some of the transfers that we've spotlighted a little bit early on, but now I'm going to tell you how they fit into the scheme and what they allow Clark Lea to do defensively because of their presence. Don't go away. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. What I love is I love everything about Super Bowl Sunday. I'll be honest. The game is always good, always exciting. The food is always top-notch, and the commercials have rarely disappointed me. I just like the entire experience on Super Bowl Sunday. And that comes into also betting on Super Bowl Sunday. I've done squares. I don't know if FanDuel does squares. I'll have to investigate that. If not, FanDuel, if you're listening, Super Bowl squares are a really, really good option. Not only, but I also like doing the player props, the anytime touchdowns and the number of receptions and all that stuff. But FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown. That's anytime touchdown, how many points will be scored, the over-under, just the basic spreads. They have a lot of prop bets and a lot of player bets. And a lot of game prop bets too. So new customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 win or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back. It is segment number 2. This is the Locked On Vandy podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen. Make sure you make Locked On SEC your second listen. And make sure also while you're doing that, you follow us on social media at Locked On Vandy on X and Instagram. You can follow my personal X account at Coach Burton36, and you can see everything that I'm involved in. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you find your podcast on the audio side. And big special thank you to the everydayers. Without you guys, it wouldn't be able to do what I do. So talking transfer portal, guys, talking the cornerback position, right? This is not a full-on position preview, but I do want to highlight because we talked on yesterday's episode, we talked about the defensive philosophy and what that means for Clark Lea and what he's able to do and what he's planning on doing. So each position kind of feeds into what you're able to do. Now, one thing I noticed about last year's group, and I don't know how much Clark Lea got involved with the defense and the defensive play calling or the day-to-day stuff. At a 2-10 record, it seems like he probably wasn't involved in much, but who knows? He just seemed detached at times, and there was major miscommunications. And so I think the most important thing for these guys, and I think they will allow, especially Marlon Jones, I think they will allow Clark Lea to do a lot of different things pressure-wise because I think he wants to be aggressive, but if he doesn't trust his defensive backs, he can't be. So these two allow him a little bit of freedom to be able to bring pressure on the quarterback, which is something that Vanderbilt needs to be able to do because I don't think they're going to be able to get home with just 4. Like they're not going to be able to play standard fronts and coverages and stunts. So one of the things that these guys will have to, one of the requirements of this job at corner is going to have to be stellar communication, especially in some of these zone coverage packages. And these corners are going to have to be able to communicate with safeties, make sure everybody's on the same page of, hey, if number 1 vacates, I got to pass him off and drive down or whatever the requirements of the coverage is, they have to be able to relay that information across and they have to be able to receive that information from the safeties and then be able to relay it back if there's any sort of adjustments and things like that. So you get a couple of all-conference guys. Marlon Jones, he was first-team All-Big Sky at cornerback coming from Eastern Washington. He's a special guy. I think he's somebody that's very versatile, and he's going to allow for you to play some combo coverages and things like that. We'll see kind of how much he can digest as far as combo coverages, but I think his skill set allows him to play some man-to-man, which down in the red zone, Clark Lea likes to play some man-to-man. So if you got a guy that can press and run and lock down a number 1 receiver, I think you allow yourself to put more guys in pressure. You allow yourself more movement on the back end, or at least with the safeties where you can get some bracketing and some help and some things over the top. But I think to be able – if you're a good man team, which – Marlon Jones seems to be a good man corner, you can pressure. And that's going to allow Clark Lea to get creative. And that's going to be scary. Because if he can get creative with pressures, he can bring guys from all different angles, confuse offensive lines. And if offensive lines can't protect, quarterbacks can't throw, no matter who you are. And this is not an extremely strong quarterback conference, right? It's okay. It's good. Like you don't have to go against Carson Beck this year, who's probably going to be the best quarterback in this conference. And I don't know that there's a Jaden Daniels. Like KJ Jefferson is out of the conference. You're not playing Arkansas anyway. But if you just look at Vandy's schedule, and I may do that on a future episode. But if you look at Vandy's schedule and look at all the quarterbacks that they have to contend with, I don't think it's that frightening. So if you can get some really good pressures on them, and your guys on the back end communicate and hold up, you're good. Now, Kolbey Taylor is somebody that's going to allow you to play some different zones because he's just so freaking long. Like he's stretched, man. He's 6'4", and he's built like a really, really good zone corner and just takes up a lot of space. He's somebody that you just look out there and he just looks physically imposing, and it just makes you not want to go that way. And it's a little bit of a psychology hack there because, if you see somebody that big out there and you look out, the quarterback comes and makes all his reads, he's like, okay, all right, oh no, right? And you're not going to attack this guy. Subliminally, you're thinking, I better really, really be accurate. And if you can get a quarterback overthinking things, overanalyzing things, especially with his mechanics, you're in a good spot because that guy will make some mistakes because he's thinking about his feet. Like really good quarterbacks think about their feet Monday through Thursday. On game day, they don't think about their feet. Think about all the good ones, right? Like I guarantee you, if you ask Peyton Manning, and I know this is kind of an extreme example, but if you ask Peyton Manning or even Jay Cutler, we'll give you a Vandy example. If you ask some of those guys, right, in the list, if you ask a long list of very successful college quarterbacks and even the pros, they aren't thinking about footwork during a game because they've burned it into muscle memory. Thinking about your feet is a summer thing, a summer workout thing, where you're out getting extra work and you're thinking about how your feet are hitting and how you're driving off your feet and all the above. And when you do, if you can get a quarterback to think about his mechanics, thinking about his arm slot, thinking about how fast he's got to get the ball out and foregoing his progressions, that's a win because A, pressure is going to get there, and B, it might force him an errant throw, and a lot of errant throws not towards the sideline usually end up as interceptions. So it puts your defense in a really, really good spot if you can kind of force the quarterback to think about other things instead of his reads. And so having a big guy standing out there certainly is a step in the right direction, and Kolbey Taylor certainly does that coming from Wyoming, and he's just stretched, man. Like he may not be the greatest corner of all time, but he's got something to prove, and he's just a big, imposing target out there. And so for that, he'll be good. Is he great with hip turns and things like that when you break him down physically? No, he's not a great corner. He's not somebody that you look at and go, first rounder. He's not that. And that's okay. He doesn't have to be that. If he's just good, if he's just a solid college corner that understands coverages, he's going to be successful. And because of his size, he's going to be successful. It's the psychology of it all. So anyway, that's what they present. That's the kind of stuff they present. Or if you got Marlon Jones, who's really good in press coverage, if you got him in the guy's face, right, you think twice about it a little bit because, you see him in the face. Okay, I got pressure, so I got to think about the pressure instead of thinking about what my progression is. And so quarterbacks can get off target like that. Anyway, when we get back, we're gonna Carter Holton is healthy finally. He was healthy this summer. He's finally ready to go. He's been working hard, getting his command back, and he's ready to roll for Vandy baseball. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. It is the third and final segment. We've got a few minutes here left. Want to thank you, everydayers, for making all this possible. Man, you guys are killing it for me, man. 175 subscriptions in a month. Let's just keep that rolling, man. My first goal is to get to 250. If we get to 250, I'll start doing a regular scheduled YouTube short segments series as well. Try to make that. We'll start it 3 days a week and go from there. If we get to 500, I might add a live stream in there. If we can get to 1,000, well, actually, no, that's 1,000. If we get to 1,000, I'll add a live stream. If we get to 500, I'll figure out what 500 looks like. So stay tuned on that. But anyway, lots of goals ahead of us. lots of goals ahead of this Vanderbilt football team. But we're going to flip the script over 15 days until baseball season opens up. They open up with FAU, I think Florida Atlantic, I do believe. And this baseball team is ready to go. They have a lot of answers to seek. They have a lot of questions to have answered, I should say. One of them is the pitching staff. Who's going to fit in where? You have 5 starter spots, 3 weekenders, two weekday guys, which will morph into 1 weekday guy as the season goes, because you'll have that one random weekday game. Early on is a bunch of weekday, like 2 gamers and things like that, where you'll need 2 starters. But like, you need somebody that, for that second weekday starter role, you need somebody that's like could be a starter, like if injury happens, or like as soon as there's no need for 2 weekday starters, they roll into the bullpen. So you need somebody kind of like that, not your closer, not your setup guy, but somebody that's in middle relief or long relief that would likely, like if 2 guys went down, he would likely get into a significant starting role. So there's a lot of candidates for that. And, there's a lot of candidates for the Sunday starter role. There's a lot of candidates for Friday and Saturday spots. All spots are important in this pitching staff. And Carter Holton is somebody that I think will be able to fit in. I think talent-wise, he has the ability to get in that weekend rotation. Whether he's a Sunday guy yet or not, that remains to be seen. That's going to be kind of played out as preseason goes along, and even into some of these early games. They're going to kind of solidify who pitches where, and it's going to come down to command and throwing strikes consistently over 6 or 7 innings. So, and the bullpen's deep, so like there are times where like you're able to preserve some of these starters a little bit for later on in the season and this regional, super regional Omaha runs that you're looking for. So Carter Holton is somebody that I think fits in really nicely to this pitching staff. He's got a powerful arm. He's got a live arm, a lot of pop on his fastball. I think the thing that plagued him before he got injured was just consistent command. And that's something you could probably ask a lot of pitchers. I think every pitcher out there will tell you that they wish their command was better. But like Carter Holton, I think got into a little bit of into the yips, or where he just walked too many batters at certain times. And when you and it kind of snowballed on him a lot. Like when you walk 2 or 3 guys, it kind of gets in your head a little bit. And I think that's kind of what happened to Carter Holton. Then he got hurt, and then now he was just really in his head. So, but he's healthy, ready to go. He's been doing well in bullpen sessions and scrimmages and fall ball and Cape League stuff, and any opportunity he's had to pitch competitively, he's done really, really well. And his command reportedly is a lot better. We'll see when they start really playing the season for real, just where that happens. So Carter Holton, I think adding pitches to his arsenal is beneficial. The slider that he's going to add is going to add pizzazz to his arsenal of pitches. So I'm really excited about what's happening there. I think he's somebody that when he gains command of it, you'll know right away, because he'll just jump right off the page to you. And he's somebody that could instantly roll into that Sunday starter spot just based on what he can do from a command aspect. So really excited about him, but he's somebody that's worked really hard. And I think he's somebody that when you have Devin Futrell, you have Bryce Cunningham, you have Duke, or Alex Dukanich, but we call him Duke. When you have those guys and they're rolling, you have a 4th guy, like you have 4 guys for 3 spots, like it's a good problem to have. And so it's going to, like I said, it's going to come down to command. It's going to come down to consistently throwing strikes and getting guys out. Can you get guys out? Do you throw a heavy baseball? Can you keep the ball on the ground? Can you keep it in the park? Can you keep these guys off the bases for the most part? Now, obviously, you're going to walk some people, and you're probably going to have. There's going to be some days where you get kind of beat up. If you're a pitcher and you haven't been beat up, you just haven't pitched much. So how the bullpen's going to shake out, who's going to be like your top relievers, who's going to be your closer. That's all to remain to be seen. So this, like I said, I've said it on X, I've said it everywhere else. This pitching staff is really deep. Lots of talent here. Some of these guys coming off injury, you hope that they just kind of continue to develop ways to be able to stay healthy in the rotation and be able to pitch for Vandy. So anyway, but that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Vandy podcast, here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayers. Make sure you continue to pass the word. Find us on social media. Find us wherever you find your podcast, and we'll catch you back here on the next one. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here Monday. Anchor down.